After you have performed the pre-start inspection and maintenance check, it's almost time to hit the road. But before you do, there are a few more things you need to know about. Get in your truck using the 3-point rule of contact. Either 1 foot and 2 hands or 2 feet and 1 hand need to be touching the truck at all times. Fasten your seatbelt and double check that the parking brake is on. Check the axle control knob and make sure it's in the correct position. When you're driving a manual truck, insert the key into the ignition, depress the clutch pedal, and place the gear shift in neutral. Then turn the key and start the engine. Allow the engine to warm up for a few minutes. Be sure to follow the truck manufacturer's recommendations on starting your truck in cold temperatures. Look around you and make sure that you have enough clearance in all directions before you start moving. Depress the clutch and put the gear shift in first gear, while at the same time keeping your right foot on the brake. Release the emergency brake and take your right foot off the brake and slowly press down on the accelerator while releasing the clutch. To shift gears, depress the clutch. Move the gear shift in the higher gear and step on the gas pedal while lifting your foot smoothly off the clutch until you reach the proper RPM. Shift through each gear in sequence until you reach 6th gear. When you have to slow down and to avoid excessive brake wear, practice downshifting. For example, you're in 6th gear and you need to come to a stop. Depress the clutch and move into 5th. Slowly take your foot off the clutch and let the engine do the work of slowing down. Then press the clutch again and shift into 4th, and so on. Some ODOT trucks shift automatically. However, when the truck is on a soft surface like on the shoulder, it's recommended to manually shift the truck in 1st gear and slowly move forward. You then manually shift to the higher gears or slide the gear shift into the D position. Here are a few more comments about proper shifting with a gear stick. Only shift gears at the proper RPM to avoid excessive or not enough clutch action. Regardless of whether your truck is empty or loaded, do not press down on the accelerator and clutch simultaneously. Never force the shift lever into the next gear. And never drive with the shift lever in neutral or with the clutch depressed. This will disengage the power from the driving wheels and is illegal. Don't let the engine lug and never ride the clutch. How do you know when you're riding the clutch? The excessive heat produces a very distinct smell. It's also very destructive and will cause clutch slippage and is expensive to replace. When you're finished driving, place the gear shift in neutral and set the emergency brake. Let the engine run idle for a minute or two before shutting the engine off so the engine gradually cools down. Turn the key in the off position and safely get out of the truck. Finally, block the wheels and perform a walk-around inspection and look for any leaks and broken or missing parts. If you notice anything irregular, it's your responsibility to notify your supervisor and maintenance department immediately. With over 500 maintenance trucks in service and a price tag of around $120,000 per truck, it's easy to see why ODOT tries to keep its trucks on the road as long as possible. A truck should run for more than 225,000 miles, but in order for that truck to last that long, it must be properly maintained and operated. And that responsibility doesn't just rest with the mechanic. You need to have a basic understanding of the truck you're driving and its parts. Imagine breaking down. You call the shop, but you have no knowledge of the engine or its parts.
Hey, something's wrong with this truck out here. I'm down on the side of the road.
How helpful and patient do you think that mechanic is going to be?
You can't tell me anything? You can't tell me, give me a clue what's wrong with it?
I don't know. Can you just send someone out to look at it?
All right, we'll send somebody after it.
Mechanics work on major repairs and replacements, but as the driver, you are responsible for the walk-around inspection and servicing of the truck. How can you do that? First, follow the maintenance schedule. For example, an oil change. Don't wait weeks or even months after the due date to schedule an appointment. The operator's manual will also have time and mileage recommendations for scheduled maintenance, so don't hesitate to open it up and take a closer look. Here's a list of what to look for during a preventive maintenance check. Top to bottom, visually inspect for broken, worn, or missing parts and possible leaks. Around the engine compartment, check the oil level, oil filter, lines, and hoses. When the engine is cool and all the hydraulic pressure is released, check the engine coolant level, the radiator, and its hose and cap. Open the cap slowly to release any built-up pressure. Check the fuel level, fuel filters, and make sure the truck is filled up before heading out. Check the batteries, cables and connectors, as well as the hydraulic fluid level and its filters, hoses, lines, and fittings. Anytime you deal with liquid, make sure there are no leaks. If there are, make sure to clean up any spills. And if you need to add a liquid, be sure to use a drip pan and wear eye protection. If your truck is an automatic, check the transmission fluid level and the transmission pressure, line filter, and breather. Check the exhaust and make sure there are no loose connections or holes. Make sure the clutch is adjusted correctly and that the drive belts are tight and not worn out. Lubricate and wipe off all the grease fittings according to the operator's manual. Pay special attention to the hydraulic lift of the dump bed. Keeping the moving parts greased is crucial to the life of the lift, especially if you're working in a dusty or sandy area. First, prop the dump bed according to the operator's manual. Refer to the video Propping the Dump Bed if you need a refresher on the procedure. Next, fill the grease gun with the correct lubricant and clean off the grease fitting with a rag. Place the gun nozzle on the grease fitting and apply pressure to release the grease. When you're finished, wipe the excess grease off the fittings. Check the tire pressure and the condition of the tires themselves. Check all the safety devices, such as warning lights and the fire extinguisher, and make sure it's not expired. Don't forget about the regular lights as well. Grab a colleague and check the headlights, turn signals, brake lights, and backup lights, and make sure the backup warning sound is audible. Finally, check all the major components, for example the dump bed, and any attachments you may be using. When it's time to drive the truck, allow the engine to warm up for 5 minutes. And at the end of your shift, it's important to let the engine gradually cool off by letting it run idle for a few minutes before shutting it off. Keep in mind, as the driver, you will know first when something's wrong with your truck. There are 4 ways that you can sense a defect. The first is feel. If you're feeling a constant pull to the right or left, a vibration in the steering, brakes that grab or don't hold, if it just doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Next is listen. Listen for clicks, thuds, or clanking noise. If you hear air escape or any other unusual noises, stop and let your supervisor know immediately. Third is smell. What you can't feel or hear, you might be able to smell. For example, burning rubber or burning oil. Finally, look for any defects. Look at the dashboard control and make sure everything's in order. Outside of the cab, a visual inspection from top to bottom will save you hours of downtime in the long run. So take time to not only get to know your truck, but also inspect and maintain it as well.